What is up, everybody? Welcome to The Wire. We hope you enjoyed the H2G podcast, but it is now time to talk sports, and it's time to talk sports for the last time here in season 2. It is our finale, and we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. I know that there was the All-Star game, and I hope that everybody enjoyed that, but we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about NFL. We're not going to talk about the quarterback carousel. We're not going to talk about the Nets. We're done with all that for the season. It's time to talk GOATs, baby. We haven't done that very much at all this season. I know TB12 has been mentioned a few times as a GOAT, and we can all agree on that, but I want to go around the horn with a bunch of different sports. We're going to start in the NFL, and we're just going to talk greatest of all time. It doesn't necessarily have to be an individual. It could be a squad. It could be an offensive line. It could be a pairing between a quarterback and a receiver, whatever you want it to be. But fellas, the floor is yours. We'll start with Marvin. Marvin, we're in the NFL first. Let's hear some GOATs.
Oh, man. I mean, when y'all first told me we were talking about GOATs, I just thought of too many people. Y'all know I'm indecisive. I can't just stick with one. That's not fair, y'all. Like, we all know Tom Brady is the GOAT. We do, but that's the cliche, right? Everybody's going to pick him. Everybody's done that, right? So the one guy that sticks out to me the most, I'd have to say, is Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis is probably my defensive GOAT of all time, just because he had such an impact on that Ravens culture, that culture that still exists to this day, a culture that's predicated on defense, that's all about defense first team, they're run first team. I mean, you got a great offense, but they're always known for their defense. And Ray Lewis just had a voice that could just lead men. That's what he did. And they were dominant for so long, and he played for so long. So to me, it was just no one ever really dominated the game besides like a Lawrence Taylor. When you think about it, I know Lawrence Taylor would probably be somebody else's defensive GOAT, but I'm just talking about growing up who I got to see, which is Ray Lewis. And I remember watching the New York Giants. This is no disrespect to New York, but they got their ass whipped in the first Super Bowl Ray Lewis was in. That was pretty funny. I saw that as a kid. I actually thought for 1 second that Kerry Collins had a chance against Ray Lewis's defense. Nah, I was stupid to think that for a moment. But Ray Lewis was the Super Bowl MVP of that Super Bowl. And since then, since they had won, they didn't go back for a while. But they were always a playoff team. Really, because of him, they always had revolving door of quarterbacks, from Trent Dilfer to Charlie Batch. The list went on, but the defense was so good that it kept the offense in the game. The defense was at one point scoring all the points. So Ray Lewis, nobody defensively, and I think in the past decade or so, has had an impact on the game the way he has. And it'll be a while to me. I haven't seen another guy that is in the league right now that's like a Ray Lewis type. I just don't see it. So that's, for me, he's the defensive GOAT. I'll just pass it to somebody else because I could easily get into my offensive GOAT, but I don't want to take up that much time. So I'll just wait to hear somebody else and they'll bounce back to me. But that's my defensive GOAT for now.
I like it, Marvin. We'll do defense first. There's no format for this. We're just freeing it up here. So
you never know.
Defense in the NFL. Who you got?
Who, me? Defense. Ooh, I was gonna go somewhere else. Defense. Go. Oh man, there's so many guys that come to mind. And to go with a quick one, he took one that I was thinking of, Ray Lewis. That's one of the best linebackers in the game. But I'm going to go with Oh man, I'm trying to think. I can't think of defensive right now. There's just too many guys going through my head because I'll say one guy and then I feel like I'm slighting somebody else. But he went with a linebacker. Let me go with a defensive back, greatest of all time. And I'm going to say Troy Polamalu. Troy Polamalu, the greatest safety of all time. You could also, throw Ed Reed out there, but Troy Polamalu was one of those guys that changed the safety position. He could do it all. He could play in the box. He could defend, as far as the receivers. He could defend your tight end. He made so many plays for that Steeler team that without him, they wouldn't have the Super Bowls they have, like those two in that era between Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin. I don't know how many times I saw him do a fingertip interception diving from about 15, 20 yards away. You know what I'm saying? He was a great player to watch. And he's the type of player that I don't think like you were saying with Ray Lewis, we'll never see somebody like that again at the safety position. I watched the Pat McAfee show, and he has a great story about Troy Polamalu destroying a 2-point conversion.
It's 2-point.
Pat, you could find. He talks about it all the time when they show that clip. But basically, they ran this play, and they had scouted the Steelers the whole time, and they knew what the Steelers were going to do every single time. But this one play, when they called the fake, Troy Polamalu lined up exactly where the fake was supposed to go. And Pat McAfee was just like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? You never do this. How do you know this fake is going there? He was like one of those players that just knew what was going to happen before it happened. And it was amazing to watch.
Dang, man. Now I got to think of a new defensive GOAT while Richie goes.
Don't worry. I'll give you plenty of names, Justin. So I'm glad you threw Ed Reed in there, Sahe. And I want to say 1A, 1B for them. They're both amazing. And that's what was so crazy is came up about the same time. You know, in my opinion, Troy had that athleticism that was crazy, and Ed was just like cerebral. Like, they were different, but they were both incredible. So I'm not going to compare. They're just both great. I'm just glad you threw Ed in there, because to me, I don't think one's better than the other. I think they're both incredible, because one was a strong safety, one was free. They didn't even play the same safety position. So they were just like all-time great. You know, you line them up, they probably are going to be the best safeties in history. But for me, there's a lot of names that already went out. Lawrence Taylor was already mentioned, a great leader. One guy that's really underrated is Derek Thomas. Derek Thomas was a phenom before he died, unfortunately. But for me, I had to go with the Minister of Defense, Reggie White, man. That guy was incredible. He was incredible. And I'm a wee bit older than Marv, so I did get to see Reggie at the tail end when he was playing for Green Bay. And I'm telling you, man, 198 sacks, phenom. He was incredible. And my little shout out to my future GOAT is my dude, man. 99 DT, greatest ever. Enough said. I'm not even going to say the man's name because I've said it 500 billion times, but he is already the greatest defensive tackle of all time. He's already has historically been double blocked all day, 66% of the time. He's going to be the GOAT. I love Marvin's pick, though, because one of the things with Ray Lewis was the intangible of his leadership, right? You look at a guy like LT who changed the game due to his dominance, but he wasn't necessarily the leader that Ray Lewis was able to bring out. And honestly, his ability to check Peyton Manning and be able to pay attention to audibles and kind of, make his own audibles on defense. So Ray was a true leader. And even though he may not have the statistics of the other gentlemen I've already talked about, he's easily a GOAT. So I'm not going to sit here and say anybody's GOAT I disagree with. But for me, I'm going to have to go with Reggie White. I just think throughout his career and in both teams he played for, he was just a dominant force. And there was never a period in his career where Reggie White wasn't the top of his position. So I'm going with Reggie White, man. Just incredible player.
Well, let me start by saying that some of the defensive players that I loved watching, at least, and some that I think can be in this conversation that are still playing, like J.J. Watt, I think could be in this conversation, still playing. I think Aaron Donald belongs in this conversation.
If we throw in,
belongs in this conversation. I think J.J.'s little brother, T.J. Watt, might belong in this conversation. But surely not next to Ray Lewis. Or Troy Polamalu. That was my pick. I don't know what else to say, because that man he was a magician. He would be on one side of the field. I'd be watching him, waiting for the hit. Take my eyes off him for 1 second, like, damn, the ball's clear over here, and then boom, it's him. It's Troy.
Right,
all over.
Head and Shoulders commercial coming up. He'd always come in there.
Flash of crazy. Hair. And the dude's attitude. I specifically remember, I think it was Larry Fitzgerald Jr. Troy got him on an outside route, brought him down, and Larry picked him up by the hair. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Troy got up with this huge smile on his face, patted him on the back, and just kept running while the whole stadium's going apeshit. Me at home going apeshit, like, you can't do that. And this guy's smiling and running back to the line because it's football. It's what he does. And I think because he had $1 million insurance policy on that hair, so probably rip it out.
Well, and the hair is part of the jersey. That was a big thing during that period of time because of how long Troy's hair was, that he would get pulled on it. And that's what they ended up ruling as well. You gonna grow your hair out that long? It's the jersey. So, but yes, yeah. Troy, incredible play.
But I'll go nostalgic then, since some other ones that I liked watching. AJ Hawk. I don't think I mentioned. I used to love watching that man tear people up. And then what was Urlacher from the Bears?
Oh, Brian Urlacher. Okay.
Woo.
Zach Thomas.
Eat people alive.
Yeah, those guys to the list.
There's some defensive backs that I just loved watching, but I'm gonna say Mean Joe Green.
There you go, Mean Joe Green. I was waiting for it. Yeah. Come on, you a Pittsburgh boy. Mean Joe Green. All right.
Let's move on to offense. Do we want to keep it general offense, or do we want to separate quarterbacks? How do we want to do it?
General. Quarterbacks are their own thing. Let's just move on with life. We're not going to talk about TV12. So who's your next guy?
Excluded from this.
Tom Brady
is excluded from this conversation, man. He just don't even count, man.
We ain't talking offense.
Sahe, we already know you got your ring, man. You still celebrating,
Tom Brady, you got 6 episodes of The Wire.
Thank you, Tom.
He might get y'all another one, so he ain't even done yet. He's not even part of it.
Exactly. That's why he's not worth talking about. On to the next one.
Sahe, you say y'all not running a retirement home down there, though.
I mean, shoot, we might as well.
Get what y'all can out of old people.
All right.
Now let's switch up the offense.
Yeah, who wants to start it off?
I'll go first.
All right, y'all. I'll go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, I just figured, Marvin, Sahe had to go early. For me, this one's real simple. We go on offense, Jim Brown. Period. Ain't nothing else to say. Man led the league every year, retired at the top of his game. The only other dude you might want to say is Barry Sanders, who did something similarly, but he just didn't have the dominance. And in all fairness, there's lots of arguments you could go against this man. One being the NFL's athleticism. He was a beast in an era where they weren't caught up to him, right? Whereas you look at now, there's just so many more athletic players. But the bottom line is that ain't his fault. He was a linebacker playing running back then. I mean, he was carrying people into the end zone because he was 6'3", 240. And back then, that's ludicrous, right? He was humongous. He was just a massive guy, incredible athlete. I think he ran a 4.3 back in the 60s. It's unheard of when you think of NFL players. The man is football. When I think of football, truly, just in general, smash mouth. Now, I love running backs. I could go through a list because those are my favorite players. Running backs, because to me, they're the heart of the offense, not the quarterback, because they have to take the beatings. They're the ones who set up play action, and they move the chain. So I'm always a running back guy. I'd go down my favorite list. Barry Sanders is my favorite player. But we're talking about GOAT, Jim Brown. We done. Jim Brown.
Sahe, what you think, man?
GOAT. I'm gonna have to go with Offensive GOAT. So many guys. I hate this question.
It's a tough question, man.
Right? Because I don't want to name. I don't want to. Hold on. I like. I'm gonna go with Randy Moss.
Okay.
Because he got to be like when he's got a catch named after him. He's the only guy to ever be like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like when you catch something over somebody, it could have been anything. Your grandma could have tossed your shoes to you, and you caught them over your little sister, and you're like, oh yeah, I just mossed your ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, it don't matter what it is. Like, you can get mossed all day. I don't care what you throwing at me. He's a receiver that really changed the game, because you didn't see guys that were that big and that fast. He came on his rookie year. I think one game he played, he had 3 receptions, 3 touchdowns, like 160 yards. It was crazy. There's I don't know. You can never have another Randy Moss. That boy was the greatest receiver of all time. His numbers don't say that, because he spent that time in Oakland. Who do you have at quarterback in Minnesota? Dante Culpepper. He never really had the team until he got to New England, and they set records. They almost went undefeated, but through the Super Bowl. Because people would say like Jerry Rice, but he had what? He had Steve Young,
Joe Montana.
He's got the greatest quarterbacks of all time. If Randy Moss had a quarterback like that and he played with through his whole career, like imagine Randy Moss and Drew Brees. Oh my gosh. Oh, both in the because we saw it when he played with Tom Brady, what they did. We saw it. You know what I'm saying? There's never going to be a receiver like that. Randy Moss, greatest receiver of all time.
He had 5 touchdowns and a half in the New England season.
Yeah,
5 and 1/2.
5 and a half. Woo!
little statistic, since he wanted to throw them off. I like it. Randy was a true playmaker, and he like what Sahe said is he truly stretched the field, and he really did force people to play honest. He was something for sure.
Marvin, who you thinking for offensive GOAT over there?
Well, I'm sorry, Richie, man, but I know you weren't going to go with him, but I got to go with Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders, to me, is one of the greatest, probably if not the greatest running back I've ever seen. I had an opportunity to see him towards the tail end of his career. Like, I can remember watching him around, I started watching football around maybe 4 or 5 years old. And just to see how electrifying he was, it's just will never ever be seen again. The way he could move, his agility, like he just changed the game. Y'all know he took ballet, like when he was like a teenager, like to help. Like,
I mean, I believe it. I didn't know that, but I believe it. The way he ran his legs, it was weird.
Yeah, the way he used to make guys miss. Like you would think he's going down, but he was just literally one of the most exciting running backs like you'd ever see. I remember, I know y'all remember NFL Game Day. It used to be on the PlayStation. Y'all remember that? Barry Sanders was on the cover 2 years in a row. And y'all, I was upset because I played NFL Game Day and all I played was with the Detroit Lions. I didn't pass the ball. I didn't even know who the quarterback was or receivers. I was like, all I know is everybody else is trash, which probably leads to why he retired. And I was upset as a kid because I felt like we were just robbed of what really could have been if he had been with a system, a proven system, like some of the systems we know today. Like say he had been like in a team that runs the ball out, like say the Ravens or something like that, where that team was building itself up. I think that he could have really gone somewhere else, where we couldn't have just been robbed of just missing years from Barry Sanders, man. He was just so electrifying. I'm mad he never got to get a Super Bowl. I was so upset with the way the Detroit franchise did Barry Sanders along with Calvin Johnson. They have a history of doing this.
Yep.
They have a history of doing this. Who knows, man? They can't even keep Matt Stafford. And you know how much I don't like Matt Stafford. So, I mean, it's bullshit. But to me, I know I can't disrespect Jim Brown. No disrespect to Jim Brown. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying what my eyes have seen. And I haven't seen anyone that elusive. I mean, there's some great running backs that come to mind. They got great footwork, but Barry Sanders, I mean, he was like gliding on the field. He wasn't like even running. Like it was just, and he wouldn't have been a big guy. So, I mean, Barry Sanders flat out, that's my offensive goal.
I'm with you, man. I love he sometimes he take a play like he do an out to the right, and then he just cut back and go dead left.
Back to
never
the right.
be ready for it.
No, never
see it coming, man.
Like, how can 6 guys not tackle this one dude? Like, he's
my favorite player of all time, for sure. I'm with you, man.
Right.
Well, I'm going to have to, because I feel like I want to bring old Justin from 2011 at WWSU 106.9 back on the podcast for a minute and talk about one of my favorite running backs of all time, number 36, Jerome Bettis. Come on, baby, let's go.
I had a feeling.
Oh, my God.
I had a feeling, man. I mean, salute to the bus.
And down the field.
Salute to that. Salute to that fat dude. That was one of my favorite running backs growing up. Go ahead, Justin.
Now that I got that out of the way. He probably doesn't get the GOAT conversation, but he was an amazing athlete for a short. I mean, he was very direct in what his purpose was. He was a short yardage running back that could take the whole fucking line with him. And I remember distinctly one of my favorite Jerome Bettis moments of all time, and I can't remember exactly what game it was, but he broke the line and had like 60 yards of open field. And I don't know if you know this, but he has severe asthma. Like, long range running was not his bag, and he got halfway down that yardage and had to run out of bounds with nobody chasing him because he didn't know what to do with it all. But one of my favorite players of all time. So I had to do that, get a little terrible towel action going. But my favorite, and probably one of the greatest running backs, in my opinion, just because he's a freak, is my AP, Adrian Peterson, baby. I mean, the fact that when he was at Oklahoma, and I don't know if you saw the game and saw the injury, but he went down like a deer taking one in the chest. I mean, he blew ACL and MCL, if I'm remembering correctly. An injury that's career ending for some people, and came back and just whomped all through the NFL, man. Set record after record. And did he retire with the record? I wish I had that pulled up.
He's a free agent, man. He's still playing.
Yeah, he's not retired.
He's not done.
He's on the Reds.
He's trying to sign with Sahe team. He's trying to go to the Bucks.
He's trying to go to the Bucks.
If he goes to the Bucks, I'm done watching football.
Hey man, AP, go get that ring, man.
He's a monster, and I think he might be an alien because he came back faster. I do know that he was running like a 4.4 or a 4.5 before his injury. Came to the NFL on a 4.2 40. Like, I don't know, man. Adrian Peterson's my guy.
Yeah, he came back from 2 ACLs because he had it in the NFL after one of his MVP season.
Jesus.
He's crazy, man. Freak athlete.
For sure. All right. So that does anybody have any other NFL choices, or shall we move on?
I'd say
I'm gonna
move
just say
on.
this.
Nope.
I'm gonna just say this one time because this was gonna be my original GOAT because I thought we're just gonna do it overall, but we didn't talk about any special teamers, and I've been watching a lot of Super Bowls, and special teams field goals determine a lot of big time games. And Adam Vinatieri for the Patriots, one of the most clutch kickers of all time. He made that that kick to send it into overtime against Oakland in the snow. It was like a 40, close to 50-yard kick and drilled it. If he doesn't make that dynasty never kicks off. That way I know they got the help with the tuck rule, but we got to shout out, you know what I'm saying, those kickers, the one that win the games, you know what I'm saying? So I just want to throw that in there.
Absolutely. Hell yeah. All right, well, let's move on to the NBA. This could get heated or this could go as expected. I don't know. I'm going to kick it over. Well, Sahe, that was a good, comfortable landing spot. Why don't we start with you? NBA greatest of all time.
Greatest of all time. Kobe. That's who I grew up, you know what I'm saying, really watching. Like, that's when I first started really watching basketball, is when Kobe got drafted. And then to see him progress into the league and win those championships. I remember watching those series against, you know what I'm saying, the 76ers and going through the West and doing those great things with Shaq. And then that whole drama going down and then him coming back and winning 2 more to prove that he didn't need Shaq to win those championships. And the man put up 81 points. So, I mean, who else is doing that? They talk about Steph Curry's the greatest shooter of all time. He's not putting up 81 points. And so I just got to go with Kobe. RIP to, you know what I'm saying, the best player I ever seen play. Whenever I shoot at a trash can, I'm saying Kobe, not anybody else.
Richie, what you got, man?
I mean, Dave Chappelle might have a little bit to do with that, but this is one where it's so hard for me. Like, football, I think, is a lot easier. Basketball is incredibly challenging. I will say I'm going to go through some caveats. The most dominant player of all time was Will Chamberlain. Not even close. And it's hard for me to not give him his greatness. 55 NBA rules were changed because he was dominating so much, they had to slow him down. Whereas Michael Jordan, when he came in, they kind of made rules to make his life a little easier. Just saying. Michael Jordan is easily, you could go with the GOAT. But I'm not going to go there. Someone else can easily take Mike. That's fine. But what I usually say is Will Chamberlain, as I just mentioned. What I'm actually going to say, though, I think will surprise people, because he just had such an understated career. But Tim Duncan. I think Tim Duncan is so underrated. It's absolutely appalling how little people know how dominant this man was. There's no power forward. Some people like to try to throw him in that center because there was a couple years he played the 4-5. But there was nobody nearly as dominant, that includes Carmelo, at the 4. 15-time All-NBA player, 13-time, I believe, first All-NBA, which means he was the best power forward in the league. 13 of his 17 years, 15-time All-NBA player, defensive All-NBA player, I think 14 times. Just incredible player, incredible. And, you know, when we talk about guys like, I love Kobe too, like to Sahi's point, because I like to see when somebody doesn't have, like, you know, like, I'm not trying to say Mike wasn't amazing, but I like to see when you look at Tim and you look at the players around him in all seriousness and you pull back in the history of the league, you know, nobody's going to talk about Manu Ginobili's a top 50 player or Tony Parker's a top 50 player, but the guy got it done, man. And he almost beat the Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant Lakers when he was, 23 years old, and David Robinson was like 50, you know? He's an incredible player, completely understated. But what I really liked about him is, as opposed to all the other players we probably will talk about in general, is he was the best defensive power forward of all time. Not even close, right? Like what we're talking about. Defensive player first, but still was a walking 20 points, 12 every single season. Best defensive player. You're not getting in the paint on this guy. We don't even talk about David Robinson because he was barely playing with Tim, to be honest. Super underrated guy, man. If I was going to draft anybody, like historically, there's like 4 people I would talk. Wilt Chamberlain, Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Tim Duncan. I'm basically going to go big dude in the paint and Mike just because he could go. Maybe you could throw in Kobe, like Sahi's point. You know, you could argue that too. But I always think defense first. Defense usually wins championships, particularly in the NBA. Tim Duncan, greatest powerful, not even close. So I'm going to go with Tim Duncan just for something different.
All right, unexpected pick out of Richie's corner. Marvin, quite a few choices left.
Yeah, there are, man. Well, first off, I got to say, man, I got to take a moment for Kobe. Definitely one of the GOATs. I mean, I really can't put anyone above him. Mamba for life. Greatest of all time. Can't really put any disrespect on his name. But if I had to choose a GOAT, I mean, I kind of wrestled with this for a second. Tim Duncan, that's a great pick, Richie. I really admired his game. He never backed down from anybody. People thought he was soft. Shaq thought he was soft. He learned differently. If you remember, Kobe even said he had a conversation with Shaq once and said, "Yo, you better watch for that boy in San Antonio. I've been watching him this season. He's been giving people work." And Shaq was like, "Man, don't worry about it. I watched him. He's soft." Tim Duncan gave it to him that whole series, and they lost. Mm-hmm. So Tim Duncan, that's just one of the GOATs. But my GOAT, I mean, it didn't take much. It's LeBron James. LeBron all day. And the reason why I say that is not because of the recent championship, not because of the 4 MVPs, not because he's, statistically leading in the finals in all categories, leading with triple doubles. You can name everything you can name. LeBron has done it. But I think that what he is not only done on the court, for me, that which classifies him to GOAT, is what he did for Cleveland. Him winning the championship for Cleveland, Ohio. Like, that probably will not happen again. That wouldn't, I do not foresee anyone bringing a championship to Cleveland, Ohio, other than LeBron James. I mean, he did what I think Michael Jordan couldn't have done. With that cast with the cast that he had over the years in Cleveland, from being drafted in Cleveland and going to the first finals and then finally winning it 9 years later, it's just a testament to his greatness. I'm not taking away nothing from Kyrie, hitting the shot, but when you look at what they did that series, and LeBron being the leader that he's been over the course of his career, him learning from D Wade how to win championships in Miami, and then coming back home, coming back to Ohio, saying that I have to fulfill that promise that he, didn't keep the first time he left. He came back and he did it. And I was at the parade, and just to see the turnout, of course I was at the parade, right? So right. I seen the turnout, and it was just millions of people there. And I was like, man, you will never see this again. And I wondered if it was a bad thing for Cleveland, because too much of a good thing could be a bad thing for a city. You peaked, right? And I asked my friend at the parade, I was like, man, you think this, we're just elated. We're on a high. But I'm like, you think this is we're peaking, at this moment? Because they just had the Republican National Convention 2 months later. And then Donald Trump was elected president. And then shit just started to go downhill. So I actually
sound like you're blaming LeBron James. No, I'm just playing.
I'm not blaming LeBron. But I'm just saying, when LeBron wins championships, it seems like all is good in the world, and then just something happens. I don't know. It's weird. Maybe it's just my life. But I would say off the court, what makes him the GOAT is just his constant work. I've mentioned this on so many shows, his consistent work towards systemic racial injustice. There's been no voice that's been more vocalized other than LeBron. He's been the loudest. And I can't speak for everybody, but speaking for the Black community, he's one of our leaders. That's somebody I see as a leader in our community, not just for what he does on the court, but what he does for the youth, what he's done for Ohio, what he's done for kids all across the world. Just his impact on the game, his footprint, is so much bigger than basketball. And for him to have an example and an inspiration like Kobe Bryant to follow up behind, I mean, what more could you ask for? Number 23, number 24. So you really can't compliment one without the other. there wouldn't be really, LeBron wouldn't be who he is if it really wasn't for Kobe or Mike.
Lakers don't win. COVID is kicking our butts. Clearly, Marv's got something going on with that trend.
Well,
Justin, here's your MVP, man.
Oh man, well, since he did
that GOAT.
Look, we got Tyrion over here trying to show that he's got up since we're talking basketball, jumping up.
That's right.
Fighting himself.
Fighting himself.
Get it.
Go.
Well, since he didn't get picked, I'm going to say Michael Jordan. And
sure.
Not just because it's the easy pick, but for me, growing up watching basketball, I was definitely more so on the football side. I mean, you guys got me into the NBA. Doing sportscasting got me into basketball. Calling in college, actually, women's basketball is what got me into basketball. But if we're talking NBA, I'm going to say Michael Jordan. And I think it's because he also was a huge role model. His story to me is hits home harder for me personally than LeBron James. I was in school when LeBron James was getting in trouble for accepting Hummers and stuff because he was always a bad man pajama. And not to say Mike wasn't good at basketball, but he struggled, right? He struggled all through high school. He struggled at North Carolina. He wasn't the greatest until he made himself the greatest, along with, his experience and his coaching staffs and his teammates and all the bumps along the way. And what's the name of the documentary folks can check out for all of that? Last Dance, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't have to sit here and tell you why Michael Jordan's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. You can just go watch it yourself. You're watching The Wire. When we come back, we're going to get off of the two main sports that we talk about all the time, and we're going to bounce around some other sports and talk greatest of all time, but not until a little commercial break. You're watching The Wire. We'll be right back.
Jump, man. Can't go wrong. Yeah, Tim Duncan won a championship every...
Hey, shout out to the H2G podcast, man. Thank y'all for having me, man. Appreciate y'all. I'm not gonna waste no time. Let's make the mess a little and better the lights. Girl, I'm gonna blow your mind. When I pick you up, take you on this ride. Yeah. Give me your energy. Come share the vibe with me. Let's be the melodies of your fantasies. Give me your energy. Come share the vibe with me. Let's be the melodies of your fantasies. Girl, the feeling's written in your eyes. Yeah, I'm going in like a diamond fight. Girl, you got me working overtime. Yeah, give me your energy. Oh, yeah, share the vibe with me. The vibe is me, the melody.
All right, welcome back to The Wire. That was our very own Sahe. Man, that is such a good video. I wanted to say I appreciate you for letting us use that on both shows, all these different weeks, and I appreciate the energy, no pun intended, actually pun intended, and I appreciate the 2.5 minute length because it gave me time to put on the Jerome Bettis gear. We were talking about him, and I felt like I change up a little.
No problem.
But we are back. And we are talking GOATs, and now that we're done with the NFL, we're done with the NBA, we're going to skip around to some other sports, and we're going to get kind of crazy here. Who knows? So let's start with baseball. So we got MLB. There are so many options, and we'll get things kicked off. Who hasn't started in a while? Marvin. Who would you pick for your MLB GOAT? And you're a baseball fan.
I love me some baseball. That's just one thing.
He's ready. Look at him.
Man,
He's smiling.
I'm excited to talk about some baseball. You know, that was one of the first sports, you grow up playing. It's baseball. So it never really goes away. It's a first love. But I can't just point out one. I can think of so many great players. So many players that stick out to me. I could say it's the greatest of all time, but I would just be disrespecting Hank Aaron, Jackie Robinson, all those guys, if I name somebody today. Because I can't, no chance in hell I'm putting Derek Jeter over any of those guys, as much as I like me some Derek Jeter. But speaking of Derek Jeter, GOATs, the greatest team of all time, is the New York Yankees. They're the greatest team of all time to me. 27 world pennants, and no one has as many as they do. When you talk about a team that's built on success, like you don't think of any other team in the MLB but the Yankees. Now I know what some of y'all thinking on this panel. Oh, the Yankees, they buy the championships. Oh, okay, yeah, whatever. Listen, there's no salary cap in baseball, y'all. Until that day, they haven't figured it out. So whoever players that's out there, whatever farm system in Dayton, Ohio, Toledo, Oakland, wherever you are, the Yankees will find that player and they will be playing in the Bronx. But when you just think of the greatest players of all time that have been able to put on the pinstripes, Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, Mariano Rivera, Yogi Berra, even I'm gonna throw Babe Ruth in there. I mean, for a brief stint, but yeah. I mean, but when you just go down the line, like there's just so many teams. There's just so many great Yankees teams that I just can't even just pick one. But that team from the 90s to the 2000s, that Yankees team dominated. They just, every time, you heard, the Yankees were in the World Series. They were in the postseason and everybody was getting mad. They were like the Patriots of baseball at one point. Everybody hated the Yankees get into the World Series. So everybody couldn't wait for the Arizona Diamondbacks to knock them off in 01. I'll never forget that World Series. That pissed me off. There's no chance in hell they should have lost that series. And there's been some series that, as y'all can tell, I get emotional talking about it. Some of the series they choked away, or some of the, some of the humps they just didn't get over, like the Houston Astros or the Dodgers. Come on, the list goes on. Recently, why they haven't been able to go back, but they're in search of getting those 30 pennants. If they don't get any more, that's fine. Other teams are playing catch up. But I just can't point out one single, player as the greatest of all time. It's the greatest team of all time, and it's the New York Yankees.
Hard to argue with that.
Go ahead, Sahe. Go ahead, and then Richie.
I don't follow a lot of baseball, but if I had to do a greatest of all time in baseball, it would be King Griffey Jr. Just because he played for the Reds. And I love King Ken Griffey when, you know what I'm saying, when I was a kid, when I tried to play baseball a little bit, but it kind of started at a time it was a little too cold for me at the time. So I never really got into baseball. But Ken Griffey Jr., man, is one of the greatest swings of all time. He could swing that bat, get that ball out of there. And there was always excitement whenever he went to the plate for me personally. So greatest of all time baseball, Ken Griffey. Until you convince me otherwise.
Richie, feel free to take that as a challenge or just tell us your go.
Well, what I'll say is Ken Griffey had the smoothest swing I've ever seen in my entire life. I'll say that right now. Greatest, to me, there's two guys. And again, it's disrespectful to even say there's only two guys. But to me, there's two guys. Ted Williams. I'm going to start off with Ted Williams. Ted Williams was incredible. I think he had averaged like almost 0.35% in batting, which is insane. Like insane. And the next guy I'm going to talk about didn't bat as high as Ted, but is incredible as well. So Ted Williams, absolute phenom, home run machine. And this is during a period of time where it's clean. Let's be honest, guys. You know, I'm not trying to denigrate anyone's records like Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds. And let's clarify something. Barry Bonds is a phenomenal baseball player, period. Mark McGwire had a lot of steroids. That's all he was good for. They're not comparable. They're not comparable in terms of their skill. Now, pushing that aside, Ted Williams is incredible. He has the highest on-base percentage of all time to this day at almost 50%. All right? The man stepped on the plate. You flip a coin, he's getting on the base. That's how ridiculous this guy was. Nobody else is even close to that. I think the next highest is 42%. So he's like 6.5% higher. And that includes Barry Bonds in his phenomenal late period of his career where they're too scared that they were just like intentionally walking him. Including that period of his career. And Barry Bonds is a phenomenal hitter, as was Hank Aaron. Let's get into those guys. But Ted Williams, even with that, Ted Williams is the highest on-base percentage to this day. Was a switch hitter. So it didn't matter if it was a left or right pitcher, he gonna take the advantage on it. He could hit either side, left or right. Incredible power hitter, contact hitter, on base, RBIs, 6-time AL batting champion, I think 2-time MVP. I could be wrong on that one. The next guy I gotta go with is, I'm a homer, Pete Rose, Cincinnati Reds, man. Pete Rose. All right, let me tell you right now, Pete Rose does not have those sexy numbers, right? He doesn't have the on-base percentage of 48%. He doesn't have the 340 batting average. He is actually, I think, 303. So he was just over 300, which again, in the modern era, people can even scoff at. But let me tell you one thing he did do. I believe it was 4,200 hits, okay? So the best way to describe this is you have to average, I think it's 310 hits for like 14 years in a row to beat Pete Rose's record. It ain't happening. All right. You know, we talk about like Iron Man stuff like Brett Favre, like, you know, played 12 years without missing a game. No, Pete Rose's record of hits is more unbreakable than that. So even though he wasn't a home run machine, I think he had less than 150 in his career. He was not. He was going to get on base. It was going to happen. That was Pete Rose. He's going to get on base. He was going to be a threat. Led the league in all-time hits, led the league in all-time RBIs. I think led the league also in walks. I could be wrong on that one. But anyways, two different styles of hitters and different approaches. I mean, Ted Williams is, in my opinion, the scariest guy to ever step to the plate. Because like I said, switch hitter, incredible power, and he's getting on the base. But Pete Rose is one of those guys that you're not going to deny. Like statistically, he's not like LeBron James. He's not like Ted Williams. He doesn't have the incredible percentages. But the bottom line is the guy found a way to get hits. The guy found a way to get RBIs. He was going to score on you, even though he wasn't the most athletically gifted and he wasn't the fastest or anything like that. He made it work. He was what I would consider, kind of what Justin said with Michael, where he had to work for it. And like he had to work for it. Pete Rose was not when you think of Pete Rose, nobody was ever like, he's the greatest player. He was the best player in the league in that year. But when you look at his overall body of work, it's hard to argue that there's anyone who did more with less, quite frankly. So I'm going to say Ted Williams and Pete Rose.
Well, this is gonna be a little bit different. I didn't pick a player. Actually, okay. I can't say that. He was a player. One of my favorite baseball stories has nothing to do with the outfield. It has nothing to do with building in or James Earl Jones, although that's a great movie. I love watching baseball, and you guys have basically named who I would have picked player-wise. One of my favorite stories is of a man who I believe is still general manager of the Oakland Athletics, Billy Beane, and what he was able to do in 2002. If you've never heard the story of Billy Beane, there's an awesome movie with Brad Pitt called Moneyball that will explain everything. But essentially, rather than and with some help, he was not fully responsible for this. He had a analytics guy that came from another team or something that linked up with him, played by Jonah Hill in the movie. But basically explained to him that, what if instead of spending the whole cap on a few good players and having this whole roster of shit, what if we spread it out over the best statistics for average? And this was in 2002, I do believe, that they got with that strategy. Mind you, he almost lost his whole ass trying to do this. I mean, he had fight back from everybody on the board at the A's. He had fight back from ownership, from everyone, fans. I mean, nobody was happy, players themselves, because he was cutting these big ticket stars, sending them down the road so that he could build what was statistically the best looking team for the money that they have. And it took them all the way in 2002, it took them all the way to the World Series. They didn't win, but they did under Billy Beane in 2006. And so I think what his story and his strength in standing up for a plan that he knew would work. And it was really just those two guys, if I remember the story correctly, that were in it together. And they're like, this, for all intents and purposes, on paper, will make us a better team, will make us the team we should be. And everyone around them said, there's no fucking way this is going to work. And they stuck to their guns. And I think that's why I'm going to choose Billy Beane as my GOAT for the MLB. Because that takes a lot of balls.
Justin, I might have to come at your neck for a second, man.
Go ahead.
I was about to say, Marvin said, spend the money, boy, spend the money.
Gotta come at your neck for a second. Billy Beane, okay, that was a great movie. Great performance by Brad Pitt. I'm gonna ask you a question. Do you think Billy Beane's quest from the start of that movie was for the Oakland A's to be better than the Yankees? They're trying to beat the Yankees, rather.
No.
Was that his whole goal? Was that his whole goal? Because if I was GM, that'd been my goal. But I mean, I'm just asking, do you think that was his goal?
No, I think success in any right. I mean, they weren't doing well,
Yeah. He has no World Series titles, and he should have taken that job with Boston. That's what he should have done, because they won the next year when he didn't take that job. But I understand what you're talking about. What he was done with, what he did with that team, with that level of talent, was unprecedented. That's the highlight that, you take away from the film. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm just saying that I felt like he would reach legendary status if he is just taking that job, if he had just signed that contract.
Can you imagine? What he could have done with money, Marvin.
With money?
Right?
We had it. They were going to give him the money. They were like, listen, man, we know what you've done. We're going to just give it to you. You don't have to work this hard for it. We got the
analytics on base percentage. That was a big part of Moneyball.
That was a great part of Moneyball.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that'll do it for the MLB. Do we want to mess with hockey? Do we want to go there, or do we want to skip on?
Wayne Gretzky.
I was going to say Wayne Gretzky. Is there even worth having a conversation? Like, come
Wayne
on,
Gretzky?
man.
Is that it?
I ain't shitting on you, Justin, but like, well, I mean, there ain't nothing else to say. Bobby Orr ain't better than Wayne Gretzky.
Right.
That'd be a joke of a conversation.
Right.
Sidney Crosby.
I'm just going based on, listen, man, I played Sega Genesis growing up, and Wayne Gretzky was on the covers. So that's the only thing
Wayne
I'm going to go by, y'all.
Nintendo 64. One of the
Wayne
most
Gretzky Nintendo
games
64
ever.
was the shit. That and is playing with the Detroit Red Wings on that team. That's the only thing I know. Detroit Red Wings.
There was a hockey game I played on Sega.
Yeah.
I used to play the hell out of it. I love when you fought.
You know you played some. Yeah, y'all know y'all played hockey. We don't know nothing about it. We just played.
I love that video game, Wayne Gretzky, because like if you scored 2 goals in a row and on your third one, what would happen is you were on a hot streak and the puck would just knock the goalie into the puck. It's so stupid. It was like NFL Blitz, but like hockey. I love that game. It was so stupid.
All right.
Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky. Go.
So
go for sure.
We've already done UFC, so let's not go there.
We have.
We've done it over 2 weeks, so I'm not gonna.
We did
our group back through that, but we can do boxing. I think we could do boxing.
Sure, let's do boxing. Then let's do golf.
Let's do boxing.
Okay.
Let's do golf, and then we'll finish it off with something we can have a little fun with, World Wrestling.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Richie started on boxing, and then we'll go to Sahe, Marvin.
Ooh. Okay. Well, I love boxing. That's actually my favorite. Now, don't get me wrong. I'd love to just go through historian mode, but I'm just gonna make it quick. I don't care what y'all probably want this guy too, but too bad I got to go first. I've said it a million times, and I will always. He's the only athlete that hasn't been in my house ever, Muhammad Ali. To Marvin's point with LeBron James, Muhammad Ali is my hero. Muhammad Ali was the first athlete to go for social activism and civil rights. Muhammad Ali did not go to war. It was incredibly, incredibly heroic of him to do that in that period of time. Jailed, lost his career for 3 years. And as an Asian, I appreciate him saying, they ain't never done nothing to me, and that's why he wouldn't go. Muhammad Ali's my boy, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are people you could easily argue are better boxers, and, feel free. There's many guys, and that's fine, but bias, Muhammad Ali, man. I'm done. Ain't nothing to say. Go.
All right, Sahe. Who you got, man?
Well, I got Money Mayweather. That's easy. One of the greatest defensive fighters, undefeated.
Probably the greatest.
He did something that most boxers don't do. Most boxers just find a promotion. They hope that somebody else can sell their fights, and they're just in it to make some money and win some fights. Floyd Mayweather had a whole business plan. Like, he took ownership of his career in a sport that's, one of the most political sports there is. There's always robberies and this and that in boxing. It's one of those things that's like, it's hard to make a name. And the way he did it by coming at the greatest, and his strategic moves made him the best of all time. Whenever Floyd Mayweather fights, it's must-see TV. He made McGregor so much. He can make anybody a lot of money whenever he decides to fight. And it's not just the money, though, that makes him the greatest. It's like his actual skill. Like, he's the real art of hit, not get hit. And some people say, well, he's running and all this and that, but that's just hate. That's just hater. That's just people hating. I love watching Floyd Mayweather fight, man. He's the greatest of all time.
Sahe, just a quick point. People who say that don't watch boxing, because again, the boxing is not about getting punched in the face. It's about punching your opponent in the face. That's it. Nobody said you got to get hit. Nobody said you got to get hit.
Nope. That's actually not good.
No, it's not good. Well, look at what happened to Muhammad Ali. Let's be honest.
Right.
Years. And Rocky Balboa. I mean, I know he's a fictional character, but
Rocky.
Stallone's the way he is because he played Rocky. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, Marvin.
Justin, that's Marvin. Who you got, man?
Oh man, since y'all already took Floyd Mayweather and Muhammad Ali off the board, that leaves me with Iron Mike. I mean, Speaking of a guy that doesn't mind taking hits to the head, but he doesn't mind giving them out either. I mean, when you look at the course of his career, from start to finish, it was pure dominance. I mean, knocking people out in 7 seconds or less, 8 seconds or less. I mean, growing up, in the early 90s, you see in the tail end kind of Mike Tyson, at elite level is what I'm saying. Before all the distractions and all that other stuff, when he was purely focused on boxing, that man couldn't be stopped. He truly was the baddest man on the planet. Anybody who came his way, and he developed a persona that just didn't come out of nowhere. I just think that he was just misguided, from a managerial standpoint. But when you look at Vic Customato and then the style that Mike Tyson had, the training, because this dude's training regimen was and still is insane. If you go back and look at the exhibition match that he was just in, I feel like he gave Roy work, but I feel like Mike still wants to fight. But if you go back and look at some of his top 10 fights, I mean, you're glued to watching the match because Mike was just an athlete. I mean, Mike had a style where he just really was just so quick with his hands. I really haven't seen anybody have that quick of hands, minus Sugar Ray Leonard, and pack so much power at the same time. And that's one of his. He admired his style. I know they had an interview, maybe it was last year or so. But I would say Mike is the GOAT. I wouldn't put him over Muhammad Ali. Richie would be disrespectful. I'm not going to do that. It's hard to argue with Floyd Mayweather being the GOAT. 50-0, how do you argue that? That's what I go by. I'm how do you argue that over a man that's still undefeated? But when you talk about a guy that if the distractions weren't there, if you took away the jail time and all that other shit, and Mike just purely focused on boxing, Mike would have been undefeated. I feel like nobody would have beat him. Who would have beat him?
Could you imagine if he had Kobe Bryant's dedication to his craft?
Exactly.
Honestly?
Exactly. If he had a Phil Jackson guidance, other than some punk ass dude Don King. Yeah.
I'm with that. And another thing I'd like to point out real quick about Iron Mike, there was this idea that you had to have a 78-inch reach or longer as a heavyweight. Mike had a 71-inch reach. He was don't get me wrong, big man, but very undersized, had short reach. He had to get in the pocket. But that's what was funny is he kind of turned that table, because it wasn't I got to get in the pocket to you. You're stuck in the pocket with me. And him being short, he was able to take those really short swings. And these big, tall guys, I don't know if you know anything about leverage.
You can really hit him.
Right. When you're big and your arm's so far out and he's getting in close, you can't hit them with your power because you can't punch somebody like this, right?
No. And so Mike's coming with uppercut.
Mike changed the way people viewed inside boxing. He was a very incredible, underrated guy. Quick shout out to Roberto Duran. We talked about Sugar Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Robinson. I got one last little guy real quick. I couldn't forget my man, Aaron Pryor, 39-1, 35 knockouts, Cincinnati, Ohio, born and raised.
Oh, yeah, you can't forget about him. I mean, I want to ask y'all this real quick. Y'all think boxing media interviews changed because of Mike Tyson? I feel like it did. I feel like if you go back and look at some of those crazy ass interviews, I feel like boxing's interviewing has changed, or even media for that matter, interviewing athletes. I feel like Mike had a lot to do with that change.
As did Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
You know, what's funny about Sahe and Marvin's pick, and I'm wondering if this isn't the next celebrity fight we see down the road, because Mike Tyson was in the news this week. I'm just going to say this before I give my go, because I had this story on the back burner anyway. Mike Tyson doesn't believe Mayweather can be the GOAT at 50-0. And he says it in reference to Sugar Ray Robinson, who had 40 fights defeated, then he lost one, and then went on a 75-fight winning streak. He mentioned Julio Cesar, don't get it wrong, Chavez, who was 89-0 before he lost. He's just talking about how basically Mayweather is very selective and takes fights based on tickets, whereas Chavez was fighting 8 times a year. He was fighting anyone that was in the rankings. Anybody that knocked on the doorstep got an opportunity and got beat. So some interesting little sidebars there, and you can come back at that. Well, I'm going to pick somebody I enjoyed watching because my 3 GOATs have been said. And he just fought Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr.
He's fun.
I really love showboating. That's why I love it. And I talk a lot of shit about the fact that Anderson Silva showboated too long. But Sahe, when we were kids, him and I used to go to Frickers and have a good old time watching Anderson Silva specifically because of the showboating, because of the ability to put on the show. And Roy Jones Jr. was so good at behind the back with both hands.
Oh, he did it first, man. He did it first.
He's bobbing and weaving, sitting on the rope, sitting on his hands, and then just winding up the punch.
Just whack.
How can you not be excited and enjoy? I mean, talk about making the fight worth it and making it worth the money and bringing some entertainment to it. I think Roy Jones Jr.
Right, y'all must have forgot.
Great fight.
Man, I'm telling you, same thing with Mike. If Roy took his career more seriously, he could have been, honestly, he was incredible. I don't want to get into the whole Justin's little fiery debate about Floyd Mayweather. All I'll say is 2 things. Those men that fought are amazing, but they fought in a different generation where they had to fight 8 times because they weren't making the kind of money they make now. To the second point, Floyd Mayweather is not focused on, in my opinion, ducking fights more so than making money. And you can't behest him at that. He wants to make them. He wants $300 million. Can you blame the brother that that's what his goal is, and he ain't trying to fight somebody for like 50? I don't blame him.
Yeah, and I just want to throw this in there. I just thought of it, my man, and I can't believe I forgot about him, but I wanted to throw this out there. My favorite fighter of all time, Emmanuel Augustin. If you guys have never heard of him, he is somebody to look up. His style was amazing. Oh my God. He'd do that drunken style. And he'd like wave and then like throw a punch. And like, it was kind of like Roy Jones, like kind of, but it was different. He was amazing.
Oh yeah. All right. So that does it for boxing. We're going to hit golf real quick and then on to the WWE to close it out. Who wants to start it out? Sahe, why don't you go ahead and we'll go reverse order here.
All right. This is this is an easy one for me. Even though he lost in the finals, you still can't take away from everything he did over his career. My man, Shooter McGavin, probably the greatest golfer of all time.
Oh my God.
He lost to Happy Gilmore in the end, but man. No, golf. You gotta go with Tiger Woods, man. That's what I'm gonna go with. Just easy choice. It's who I grew up watching. It's like one of the main golfers that I know of, so I gotta go with Tiger Woods. Like, what else is there to say? You know what I'm saying? It's Tiger Woods. Everybody knows.
Right.
Get well soon. T's and P's, my man.
Absolutely. I know Marvin's going to have the cap on it, so let's let Richie go, and then Marvin. I'm gonna pick that.
Right.
That's all.
I mean, there are a lot of amazing golfers. Obviously, Tiger is probably the most influential of our generation, if not all time. I'm going to leave Arnold Palmer to Marv. I'm going to say Jack Nicklaus. I'm going to go with the man who won second place virtually as many times as he won first place. Jack Nicklaus was an incredible golfer. I don't know what else to say, man. That was my father's favorite golfer, and he just, I don't know what to say. He was just like, to me, what I loved about him is not just, like I said, his ability to win, but his ability to come in second, to come in third, and he was just always in contention. And to me, there's only two prolific golfers in terms of like winning, and it's him and Tiger. And like honestly, a lot of Tiger's career was, can he surpass Jack? And I don't want to have that conversation of whether he did or didn't. But I mean, to me, that's the point, is Jack was the golden standard of winning. And Tiger was, that was the idea of Tiger, is Tiger was going for that goal line, going to see if he could surpass the winner that is Jack. And so, when you talk about GOATs, it's hard to not say, the all-time winner in golf, essentially, Jack. So I'm going to go with Jack. But there's a drink named after somebody we love.
Marvin.
And you already know who I'm going to say. I'm not going to say no Arnold Palmer. I've actually enjoyed that damn drink. It's nice and refreshing. It is a refreshing ass peppers. But man, Sahe, you right, man. There's nobody that you can put above Tiger Woods, man. He's undisputed GOAT to me. I don't care if he didn't get close to that finish line of Jack's, 16 majors?
16.
16. Tiger, nobody has dominated the game the way Tiger Woods has. I mean, we weren't around to really see Jack Nicklaus play. I mean, I just can't really attest to his level of competition, minus Arnold Palmer or even Byron, some of the guys I could think of on the top of my head, Byron Nelson or somebody. But Tiger's competition was pretty deep. I mean, when you look at it, even though he was dominating the field, you got Phil Mickelson, you had Vijay Singh. I mean, he had his competition, but when you look at like the clips, all you gotta do is go to YouTube and look at Tiger Woods' clips, or go back and watch some of his tournaments. Man, the dude was just simply amazing. I've been on so many shows where I've just talked up Tiger, but long story short, there's nobody that's dominated the game. Go watch the clips. Go watch the fist pumps. Go watch the 5 green jackets ceremonies. Go watch it, because he is the Michael Jordan of golf to me. And I don't care how many women it was. I don't care. Put that all to the side. Forget about all that. He is that dude and forever be that dude.
All right. So guys, we got a minute apiece. I want the best professional wrestler on any category you want, whether it be actually just wrestling or whether it be Mike, whatever it is. You got a minute apiece. We'll start with Richie. Go ahead.
I mean, I already said it last time we did this topic. My name ain't changing. Ric Flair. Woo! The Nature Boy. 16-time world champion. We're sticking with that number 16. Ric Flair.
All right. Marvin, who you got? Best wrestler of all time.
The Rock.
The Rock, plain and simple. All right.
Flat out.
Sahe, how about you, man?
I'm gonna go with Macho Man Randy.
Yeah.
Because the cream always rises to the top. You got it, brother.
Hey, I was wearing a Macho Man shirt on the boat.
Did that hurt him? Did that hurt him?
It hurt his voice. It hurt his voice. That wasn't his natural speaking voice. It screwed up his voice.
I'm going to go with the man who was able to basically hold down the main event of WrestleMania for my entire lifetime. The Phenom, the Undead Dead Man, the Undertaker. My boy,
turning it up.
He may not be the best technical wrestler. He wanted to go into. He's even said I would have been an MMA fighter if that was a thing when I got into this whole shit. But he is just so awesome. He's always been awesome. Everything about him, except for when they had him drop to Brock Lesnar, has been amazing. I'm an Undertaker, ride or die. I'm gonna give him the GOAT this time. I think I gave.
Hey man, greatest WWF wrestler for sure. 30 years.
30
years of wrestling.
And he still wanted to keep going.
He still wanted to keep going.
I mean, we don't even know. He might still show up.
I feel like he was mad at he's mad at himself, at his body. You know? I'm like, bro, you can just relax, man.
30 years, bro. You did it.
You know, and there's somebody else we can mention as we got a couple of extra seconds, and he's come back now, which is incredible because I never thought this would happen. But Edge, the rated R superstar.
Yeah, Edge, rated R superstar.
Yeah,
Can't go wrong.
Talk about the psychology of having to leave on injury or because your body won't let you do it anymore. I mean, imagine these guys with their live shows are doing 4 or 5 shows a week all over the country for thousands of people screaming their name, going nuts for them, and then imagine just having to sit home all week.
8 years removed from neck surgery and has come back after
never thought I'd see him wrestle again.
To his neck.
I remember when he was crying during his retirement. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I have chills right now from remembering hearing. You think you know me?
Yeah.
Oh, he's clearly a legend, man. He's one of the GOATs for real.
For sure. I don't know. The new kid, Roman Reigns. I don't know if you guys watch it all, but that boy
I like Roman. I like Roman. He is.
I like he's Roman Reigns. He's definitely coming into his own right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's saving this company.
He is. Exactly. He's the head of the table.
He's head of the table. That's what he's wanted.
Make the heat work for you. All right, well, this has been The Wire Season 2. We appreciate it. We love you all. We're going to come back on the very last day of this month. Correct me if I'm wrong. Nope, the 31st. We'll be back with Season 3 of The Wire, bigger and better than ever. Until then, make sure you check out all the great content at h2gpodcast.com. You have a great couple of weeks. We'll see you at the end of March. Yeah, I could see also somebody putting Cena's name in there, you know?
I was thinking you were saying Cena at first, which is why I did this, and then you said Undertaker.
I put my hand up like that.
If they had done something differently with his character and then just keep him the same for years, then maybe. You know.